Humans, however, continued their work without concern for the fear they inspired. They did not seek to dominate or conquer. They sought to improve, adapt, and solve problems. Every ship they built, every system they developed, and every challenge they overcame reinforced their position as a species unlike any other. The Empire could watch, calculate, and plan, but the humans' unpredictable creativity and rapid innovation meant they were always advancing faster than anyone could anticipate. By the time the Empire fully grasped the scope of human potential, it was too late. Humans had already established a new standard of power, one that relied not on size or intimidation but on ingenuity, adaptability, and relentless determination. The story concluded with humans holding a quiet, undeniable advantage in the galaxy. Their ships, their technology, and their approach to problem-solving had transformed them from an underestimated species into one of the most formidable forces in existence. The Galactic Empire, once unchallenged, was forced to recognize that humans could not be ignored or controlled. They had demonstrated the ability to achieve what no one thought possible, and in doing so, had changed the galaxy forever. The Galactic Empire was one of the most powerful civilizations in the known universe. For thousands of years, they had expanded their control over countless star systems, and almost every species in the galaxy knew to fear them. Their fleets were enormous, their warships were heavily armed, and their soldiers were trained to enforce the Empire's rule without question. The Empire believed that nothing could challenge its power. They had faced rebellions, rival empires, and even rare cosmic disasters, and yet they had always come out on top. It was this confidence, this absolute certainty in their superiority, that made the upcoming discovery so shocking. It all started when scouts were sent to explore the outer rim of the galaxy. These were regions that were thought to be unimportant, with small, scattered planets and primitive species that could never pose any real threat. The scouts moved through these systems with ease, cataloging planets, recording resources, and marking potential colonies. Life was routine for the Imperial Scouts. They were accustomed to encountering species who could barely maintain basic technology, species whose weapons could barely scratch an Imperial ship's hull. They expected the same when they entered this one particular star system, a system on the edge of mapped space, far from the Empire's core, and home to a species called humans. When the scouts first detected signs of life on the human homeworld, they assumed it would be simple to observe. Humans, according to the Empire's early reports, were similar to many other species they had encountered: small, fragile, and technologically limited. Their initial scans showed basic planetary infrastructure, simple cities, and limited industrial activity. Nothing about this world suggested that it was capable of producing anything extraordinary. The scouts prepared their usual protocols: observe quietly, catalog the civilization, and report back to the Empire. However, what the scouts discovered soon challenged every assumption they had ever made. Humans were different, not in size or strength, but in their minds and their creativity. Their technology was strange, not in the way it was flashy or advanced, but in the way it worked. Early observations revealed humans tinkering with machines, experimenting with energy systems, and creating engines that defied standard physics principles. While alien scientists had long relied on rigid patterns and rules that had been passed down for millennia, humans seemed to approach problems in ways that were completely unpredictable. They used intuition, trial and error, and a kind of ingenuity that was foreign to Imperial logic. The scouts reported these findings back to their commanders, expecting perhaps mild curiosity or approval. Instead, their reports caused confusion. The Imperial analysts, experts in understanding and cataloging alien civilizations, struggled to interpret what the humans were doing. Their machines, their experiments, and even the way they organized their work made little sense in terms of conventional science. Some of the ships humans were building seemed impossible. They were too efficient, too fast, and used materials in ways that the Empire had never seen before. At first, the Empire dismissed these reports as exaggerations. After all, scouts sometimes misread sensor data, and even the most skilled observers could be fooled by natural phenomena or faulty readings. But as more reports came in, it became impossible to ignore the truth. Humans were not only experimenting with advanced technology, they were succeeding. Small prototypes built in hidden factories were already outperforming some of the Empire's older warships. The news spread quietly at first, whispered through Imperial channels, but it quickly reached the ears of high-ranking officers. Panic was avoided for now, but curiosity turned into concern, and concern turned into disbelief. How could a species so small, so isolated, and so limited in resources achieve what the Empire considered impossible? The humans themselves did not seem aware of the Empire's interest. On their homeworld, scientists worked late into the night, engineers tinkered in their garages, and pilots tested small experimental ships. They were motivated not by conquest, nor by fear of the Empire, nor even by ambition to dominate the galaxy. Their drive came from curiosity and a desire to solve problems. When they encountered a challenge, they did not accept limitations. They found new ways to overcome them. For the scouts observing from orbit, this behavior was baffling. Humans were constantly redesigning their machines, combining ideas in ways that were chaotic but effective. They did not follow the predictable, systematic methods that the Empire was used to seeing. Instead, their creativity seemed wild, unbounded, and almost reckless. But the results were undeniable. As the months went by, humans built more than just prototypes. They began constructing vessels that the scouts could barely understand. These were not the slow, lumbering ships common in human outer rim systems. They were elegant, fast, and surprisingly durable. The Empire's analysts tried to estimate their capabilities, running simulations and using advanced sensors, but every calculation failed. The ships did not conform to known physical limits, and even the most sophisticated algorithms could not predict how humans would modify them next. Every new model incorporated lessons from the last, improving in ways that were both subtle and radical. The Empire's experts realized that humans were not just inventing, they were evolving technology in real time. The first contact with a human craft in orbit was accidental. An Imperial scout sent a routine observation probe near one of the shipyards was detected almost immediately. The humans did not panic. They did not hide. Instead, they deployed a small patrol vessel, not with overwhelming firepower, but with intelligence-guided maneuvers and defensive systems that forced the scout to retreat. The scout returned with urgent reports. Humans could defend themselves, they were resourceful, and their ships were unlike anything the Empire had catalogued. This marked the first time in history that an Imperial fleet officer expressed doubt about the Empire's invincibility. As more information flowed in, the Empire began to realize that underestimating humans had been a grave mistake. Their technology alone was alarming, but what was more disturbing was their mindset. Humans did not operate within rigid hierarchies the way most alien species did. Decisions were made quickly, based on observation and adaptability rather than bureaucratic process. Their creativity allowed them to experiment without fear of failure, and their perseverance meant that even setbacks became learning opportunities. For the Empire, which relied heavily on structure, hierarchy, and predictable responses, this unpredictability was terrifying. Reports from scouts and spies painted a picture of a species that could learn, adapt, and innovate faster than any other civilization the Empire had ever faced. Entire fleets of Imperial engineers were tasked with studying human technology, but even their most brilliant minds could not understand how humans were achieving so much with so little. It seemed almost impossible that a species so young in terms of galactic history could reach a level of technological sophistication comparable to centuries-old civilizations. The first part of the story, then, is the discovery itself, a moment in which the Galactic Empire realized that it had encountered something entirely new, something it could not easily control or predict. It is the moment of shock and awe when a mighty empire begins to feel the stirrings of doubt for the first time. What started as routine exploration turned into a revelation that challenged centuries of assumptions. The humans' ingenuity, resourcefulness, and fearless experimentation began to make waves in Imperial reports, and those waves were the first signs of a storm that would soon shake the entire galaxy. By the end of this first phase, the Empire knew two things with absolute clarity. Humans were different, and ignoring them would be a mistake of unimaginable consequences. What had begun as an ordinary scouting mission had turned into the first warning of a new force in the galaxy, a species capable of building warships that the Empire itself had considered impossible. And so, with both curiosity and unease, the Empire began to watch, study, and prepare, unaware that the humans they had dismissed were on the verge of changing everything. The moment the Galactic Empire realized humans were not only intelligent, but capable of creating advanced technology, The true shock came with the unveiling of their first impossible warship. It was not a small or experimental vessel, but a full-fledged warship unlike anything in the Empire's history. For centuries, the Empire had defined power through size, firepower, and the ability to crush opposition with overwhelming force. Their largest battleships could fire devastating energy cannons that obliterated entire fleets, and their hulls could withstand attacks that would vaporize ordinary ships. The Empire was confident that no species could match this level of technology. Yet humans shattered that confidence completely. The first impossible warship was built in a hidden facility on a remote planet, far from any major human city. The ship was enormous, yet its design was sleek and elegant. Unlike Imperial vessels, which were often bulky and imposing, the human warship seemed designed for efficiency and adaptability. Its shape minimized resistance in space, but it also had features that no Imperial scientist could explain. Sensors detected energy patterns that suggested the ship's shields could repair themselves during battle, absorbing and redirecting energy in ways that defied conventional physics. Its propulsion system was equally mysterious. While most ships relied on predictable engines or hyperdrive systems, the human vessel could execute jumps across space with incredible speed and precision, appearing almost instantly at its destination. When scouts first observed the warship in orbit, they struggled to believe what they were seeing. Their instruments showed readings that contradicted known science. The hull was too light for a ship of its size, yet it could withstand attacks from powerful energy beams without damage. The energy shield appeared to anticipate incoming fire, strengthening itself in specific areas before the weapons could even hit. Imperial analysts ran simulation after simulation, but the results always failed. Every attempt to predict or replicate the ship's behavior was met with failure. For the first time, the Empire faced a species whose technology could not be measured, predicted, or controlled. The warship was not just a technological marvel, it was a symbol of human ingenuity. The humans themselves did not consider it an extraordinary feat. To them, it was simply the next step in solving a problem. Engineers worked tirelessly, testing new designs, making small adjustments, and learning from every failure. Unlike the Empire, which relied on rigid hierarchies and strict engineering protocols, humans encouraged experimentation and improvisation. Pilots tested the ship's limits, reporting every flaw and every unexpected advantage. Designers quickly incorporated these lessons into the next model. Each human warship was the product of iterative learning, something the Empire's methodical approach could not replicate. The first public, or at least semi-public, appearance of this warship created waves throughout the Empire. Scouts and observers sent reports back, describing a vessel that seemed faster, stronger, and more versatile than any ship in the Imperial fleet. Its weapons were unlike conventional energy cannons. Some appeared to manipulate gravity. Others could fire concentrated beams that bypassed shields entirely. The Empire's top scientists and engineers struggled to understand how a species with relatively limited resources could produce such technology. The humans were not only building ships, they were rewriting the rules of space combat itself. The panic among Imperial commanders grew as they realized the implications. The Empire had long relied on its technological dominance to maintain control over alien civilizations. Fleets moved in predictable ways. Strategies were based on known strengths and weaknesses, and battles were almost always won through sheer firepower. But human warships changed that calculus entirely. These ships could outmaneuver larger fleets, survive attacks that would destroy ordinary vessels, and strike with precision that was nearly impossible to counter. Suddenly, the Empire's greatest asset, its technological superiority, was no longer a guarantee. Humans themselves were not motivated by conquest or fear of the Empire. Unlike other species the Empire had encountered, humans did not build these ships to dominate others immediately. Their goal was efficiency, adaptability, and problem-solving. They saw obstacles as challenges to overcome, not threats to defeat. This approach made their technology unpredictable. While Imperial strategists expected patterns, humans constantly innovated in unexpected ways. Ships evolved rapidly, becoming faster, stronger, and more versatile with each new iteration. For the Empire, this was terrifying. Predictability was central to control, and humans offered nothing predictable. The first encounter with this impossible warship occurred during a routine scouting mission. An Imperial patrol, sent to observe human activity in the system, detected the ship moving at incredible speeds through the planet's orbit. The humans did not attack immediately, they had no reason to, but their defensive capabilities were clear. The patrol attempted to get closer, sending probes and scanning the ship from a safe distance. Every probe was neutralized, either intercepted or destroyed, without the humans even appearing to take aggressive action. The Imperial crew reported back with awe and disbelief. They had never seen a ship respond so effectively to threats without human intervention at every step. The ship's system seemed semi-autonomous, able to calculate risks and adapt instantly. What made the warship truly remarkable was not just its technology, but the philosophy behind it. Humans approached engineering as a process of continuous learning and adaptation. They were not constrained by old rules or traditions. Every failure was a lesson, every experiment an opportunity to improve. This was completely foreign to the Empire, where technology was passed down with strict protocols, and innovation was slow, hierarchical, and heavily controlled. Humans, in contrast, embraced trial and error, collaboration, and intuition. The result was machines that seemed almost alive, capable of responding to threats, learning from experience, and evolving faster than anything the Empire could design. As reports of the warship spread throughout the Empire, fear began to mix with fascination. Imperial leaders debated what this meant for their control of the galaxy. Could humans be ignored, or were they now a real threat? Entire fleets were reviewed, and plans were drafted for reconnaissance, sabotage, and even preemptive strikes. Yet every plan failed in simulations. Human ingenuity could not be predicted. Their ships could adapt faster than any strategy the Empire could devise. The once invincible fleets of the Empire were suddenly vulnerable, and commanders began to feel a sense of unease that had never existed before. The unveiling of the warship also had a psychological impact on the Empire. For centuries, they had believed themselves untouchable. Their fleets, technology, and armies were unmatched. To realize that a species they had dismissed as primitive could now build vessels beyond their comprehension was a blow to imperial pride. Rumors spread quickly through the corridors of power. Humans could not only match imperial ships, they could surpass them. Analysts debated endlessly, trying to find weaknesses, trying to understand what humans were doing that they were not. Yet the answers always seemed just out of reach. Meanwhile, humans continued their work undisturbed. The warship was only the beginning. Engineers, designers, and pilots pushed the boundaries further, testing new propulsion systems, experimenting with energy shields, and exploring weapon designs that no alien had ever conceived. Each human warship built upon the lessons of the last, improving in speed, defense, and versatility. Humans did not boast or seek recognition. They simply pursued solutions driven by curiosity, necessity, and a desire to protect themselves. The Empire, watching from afar, could not comprehend this mindset. The first impossible warship became a symbol of human potential. It was proof that humans could create something that defied expectations, something that challenged centuries of galactic knowledge. For the Empire, it was a warning. The galaxy was no longer predictable, and human technology could no longer be underestimated. Scientists, commanders, and diplomats realized that humans were not just another species. They were a new kind of force in the galaxy, one that could change the balance of power forever. By the end of this phase, the Empire had no choice but to pay attention. They could no longer dismiss humans as primitive or insignificant. The warship was only a glimpse of what humans were capable of. If they continued at this pace, the humans could soon build fleets that rivaled or even surpassed those of the Empire. What had begun as a curiosity had turned into a significant threat. The Empire had witnessed the impossible and was now forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about power. Technology and the future of the galaxy, humans, however, remained focused on their work, unconcerned with the Empire's panic or fear. To them, the impossible was merely a challenge waiting to be solved. The warship was the first of many, each more advanced than the last, each demonstrating that human creativity and determination could achieve what no one had ever imagined. The Empire could watch, analyze, and plan, but the humans were always one step ahead. The first impossible warship was not just a vessel, it was a statement. Humans were no longer to be underestimated, and the galaxy was about to witness a revolution in space warfare. The revelation that humans had built ships the Galactic Empire could not understand created shockwaves throughout the entire imperial hierarchy. For centuries, the Empire had operated on a sense of absolute superiority. They had conquered countless star systems, subdued civilizations with advanced military technology, and relied on the predictability of other species' behavior. Imperial generals and scientists had grown comfortable in the knowledge that their strategies, fleets, and technology could overcome any threat in the galaxy. But humans were different. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and unpredictable thinking defied everything the Empire had come to expect. Once initial reports of human warships reached the Galactic Council, disbelief turned into alarm. Analysts who were accustomed to carefully cataloging the capabilities of every known species found themselves unable to quantify human technology. The impossible ships could outmaneuver Imperial vessels, withstand attacks that would destroy even the most heavily armored battleships, and strike with precision that seemed almost supernatural. Every attempt to predict how humans would act or what they would build next ended in failure. This inability to anticipate human behavior was deeply unsettling for the Empire. Control, which had always been their ultimate weapon, now felt fragile. The initial response of the Empire was a mixture of skepticism and mild curiosity. Some believed humans were simply lucky, or that their reports were exaggerated. Scouts and spies had occasionally misinterpreted data after all. But as more intelligence came in, the evidence became undeniable. Humans were capable of producing warships that seemed impossible, and they were improving faster than anyone had imagined. Entire divisions of Imperial engineers, tasked with reverse engineering human designs, failed repeatedly. Every model they studied revealed principles and methods that the Empire could neither understand nor replicate. This was not a technological gap, it was a paradigm shift. Panic began to spread through Imperial command structures. The leaders of fleets who were accustomed to issuing orders that guaranteed victory suddenly found themselves questioning their assumptions. Strategies that had worked flawlessly against other civilizations now seemed inadequate. Imperial generals debated endlessly about how to respond. Should they attempt diplomacy, intimidation, or outright attack? None of the options seemed viable. Every proposed action was met with uncertainty, because humans could not be predicted. Their decisions and technological advancements were so unconventional that traditional Imperial tactics were useless. Espionage missions were dispatched in increasing numbers. Imperial scouts and agents attempted to infiltrate human facilities, gather blueprints, and learn the secrets behind the impossible warships. But humans were equally clever at defense. They anticipated potential threats in ways that seemed impossible, often before Imperial operatives even realized a mission was underway. Sensors and defensive systems neutralized intruders, and any captured data was often misleading or incomplete. The Empire realized slowly and painfully that humans were not only brilliant engineers but also exceptionally strategic thinkers. Their unpredictability made them a nightmare for a civilization that thrived on rules, order, and control. The psychological impact on the Empire was immense. For centuries, they had operated under the assumption that no species could match their power. Entire fleets of battleships, advanced warplanes, and specialized weapons were constructed under this belief. Imperial officers had grown accustomed to the idea that fear alone could control lesser species. Yet humans were unafraid. They did not bow, flee, or submit under pressure. They experimented, they adapted, and they challenged the Empire in ways that were almost unimaginable. This defiance, combined with their technological superiority, caused anxiety at every level of command. In response to the growing threat, the Empire attempted to develop countermeasures. Teams of scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked around the clock to design weapons capable of neutralizing human warships. They tested new energy beams, experimental shields, and advanced propulsion systems. But each effort failed. Humans quickly adapted to new technologies, often before the Empire had even completed development. Every attempt to gain an advantage was met with creative human solutions, reinforcing the sense of unpredictability and the perception that the Empire was losing its grip on dominance. Even within the halls of the Galactic Council, debate raged. Some members argued for an immediate preemptive strike, believing that eliminating humans before they could advance further was the only way to maintain control. Others advocated caution, recognizing that humans' adaptability made them a far more dangerous opponent than previously understood. A minority even suggested that diplomacy and observation might be safer approaches. But the concept of negotiating with a species that had already demonstrated superior technology seemed unthinkable to many. The Empire, so used to dictating terms to weaker species, now faced a civilization that could outthink and outbuild them at every turn. The Empire's military planners were forced to rethink their approach entirely. Traditional tactics based on overwhelming firepower and predictable movement were no longer sufficient. Human warships moved unpredictably, their shields and weapons functioning in ways that defied calculations. Fleets designed to dominate through massed force found themselves outmaneuvered and outmatched by small, but incredibly capable human vessels. Battles, when they occurred, could no longer be won by strength alone. Strategy, innovation, and adaptability became critical. The Empire realized that it might be entering an era where humans could challenge its supremacy in the galaxy. Imperial scientists tried to understand the humans' problem-solving methods. Unlike other species, humans did not rely solely on formulaic procedures or inherited knowledge. They combined logic with intuition, imagination, and collaboration in ways that made their technological development appear almost organic. Failures were not setbacks, they were opportunities to improve. Designs evolved rapidly, often in response to situations that the Empire could not have anticipated. This iterative, dynamic process made human technology a moving target, impossible to pin down or predict. The Empire, which thrived on stability and control, was unprepared for such innovation. The response was not just technical, it became political as well. News of the humans' impossible ship spread through the ranks, creating tension and fear. Governors, admirals, and council members worried about the implications for imperial authority. If humans continued to advance at this pace, they could destabilize entire sectors, challenge imperial rule, and inspire other species to rise against the Empire. The psychological impact was as dangerous as the technological threat. Fear and uncertainty began to infiltrate decision-making, slowing down responses and creating divisions among leaders who were once unified in purpose. As imperial panic grew, humans continued to operate in relative obscurity. They had no awareness of the full scale of imperial concern. On their homeworlds and in hidden space stations, engineers and pilots focused on exploration, experimentation, and problem-solving. Each warship represented a new challenge conquered, a new problem solved. Humans were driven by curiosity, necessity, and the desire to protect themselves rather than ambition to dominate others. Their progress seemed inexhaustible, and every new development only deepened the Empire's anxiety. The unpredictability of humans became a critical theme in the Empire's planning. Attempts to predict human actions failed repeatedly. Whether it was a new weapon system, a modified shield, or an unexpected maneuver in space, humans defied expectations. The Empire had grown accustomed to calculating probabilities, predicting outcomes, and planning with near-perfect certainty. Humans shattered that model entirely. Their creativity and adaptability were now seen not just as advantages, but as existential threats. Imperial generals had to admit, often reluctantly, that humans were capable of outthinking them. By the end of this phase, the Empire faced a new reality. Humans were no longer a curiosity. They were a serious challenge. Their ability to innovate rapidly, adapt to new threats, and think unpredictably made them an unprecedented opponent. The Empire could no longer rely on sheer firepower, intimidation, or traditional tactics. It had to acknowledge that a small, relatively young species could threaten centuries of established dominance. The shock and fear were palpable. For the first time in history, the Empire's invincibility was in question. The story of Part 3 is not just about technology. It is about realization and panic. It is the moment when the Galactic Empire understood that humans were a force unlike any other. Every plan, every strategy, and every assumption had to be reconsidered. The humans' ingenuity had created uncertainty at every level, shaking the foundations of an empire that had believed itself untouchable. Their unpredictable creativity, combined with their technological skill, forced the empire to confront the uncomfortable truth. Humans could no longer be ignored, underestimated, or controlled. Humans, meanwhile, continued to build, innovate, and adapt, entirely unaware of the panic their existence had caused. They approached challenges with determination, solving problems in ways that were both simple and brilliant. Each success further demonstrated that human potential could not be measured by imperial standards. The Empire had entered a new era, one defined not by certainty or domination, but by the need to contend with an unpredictable, unstoppable species. The impossible had arrived, and the humans had become the galaxy's most unexpected and formidable threat. As the Galactic Empire scrambled to understand human technology, the humans themselves continued to advance at a pace that stunned even the most skilled Imperial observers. The first impossible warship had already changed the balance of fear and respect across the Empire, but it was only the beginning. Humans did not stop to celebrate their achievements or even notice the panic their technology was causing. They were relentless in their pursuit of improvement, driven by curiosity, necessity, and a deep desire to solve problems. Each new design, each new system, was more advanced than the last, building on lessons learned from previous experiments. The process by which humans developed their ships was unlike anything the Empire had seen. Imperial engineers and strategists relied heavily on structure, hierarchy, and carefully calculated steps. They followed long-established formulas, building on generations of accumulated knowledge. Humans, in contrast, seemed to operate in a state of constant experimentation. They observed, hypothesized, and tested in ways that appeared chaotic but were incredibly effective. Failures were never ignored. They were studied, analyzed, and used to create even better solutions. A ship that did not perform perfectly was not discarded. Instead, it became a blueprint for the next iteration, improved and refined with every attempt. One of the most astonishing aspects of human innovation was the speed at which they learned. While the Empire's scientists could spend decades developing new technologies, humans often accomplished similar breakthroughs in a matter of months, or even weeks. Engineers and pilots worked in close collaboration, exchanging ideas and testing theories immediately. The feedback loop was incredibly fast. A pilot might identify a problem during a test flight, report it to engineers, and see the solution implemented in the next prototype almost instantly. This approach allowed humans to adapt at a pace that the Empire could not match. Imperial intelligence reports emphasized that it was not just human technology that was extraordinary, it was the humans themselves. Unlike many other species the Empire had encountered, humans were creative, adaptable, and fearless. They did not rely solely on brute force or tradition. Instead, they approached challenges from multiple angles, often combining unconventional ideas with practical engineering. This combination of creativity and practicality allowed them to produce warships that were not only powerful, but also versatile. Capable of responding to a wide range of threats in real time, each new human warship revealed features that baffled the Empire. Some had shields that could regenerate mid-battle, absorbing and redirecting enemy fire in ways that Imperial scientists could not explain. Others had propulsion systems that allowed near-instantaneous jumps, making them nearly impossible to track. Weapons were equally advanced. Some human ships used concentrated energy beams that could penetrate even the strongest defenses, while others employed systems that manipulated gravity or disrupted enemy sensors. For the Empire, it seemed that humans were discovering principles of physics that had previously gone unnoticed, applying them in ways that defied conventional wisdom. As humans continued to innovate, Imperial attempts to replicate or counter their technology failed repeatedly. Every new weapon, shield, or propulsion system developed by the Empire was quickly rendered obsolete by the humans' iterative design process. The Empire had long relied on its superior resources, its massive fleets, and its structured approach to maintain dominance. But against humans, these advantages were no longer sufficient. Every measure the Empire took was met with a countermeasure, often one that was entirely unexpected. The humans' ability to adapt quickly and think creatively made them a moving target, impossible to pin down or predict. The psychological impact on the Empire was profound. Generals, scientists, and strategists who had spent their lives confident in the Empire's supremacy now faced uncertainty. They realized that humans could not be defeated with conventional tactics or overwhelming force. The unpredictability of human innovation created anxiety, forcing Imperial leaders to question their assumptions and rethink their strategies entirely. It was a humbling experience for a civilization that had long considered itself untouchable, and the realization that humans could outthink them struck fear into the hearts of even the most experienced officers. Humans, however, remained largely unaware of the magnitude of the Empire's concern. On their homeworlds and in remote shipyards, they focused on solving the next problem, improving the next system, and testing new designs. Their motivation was not fear, ambition, or a desire for conquest. It was curiosity and the drive to overcome challenges. This relentless focus allowed them to continue advancing at a pace that the Empire could not match. Each success built confidence and momentum, while failures were merely stepping stones to the next breakthrough. The iterative nature of human engineering was one of their greatest strengths. Unlike Imperial technology, which relied on rigid planning and long development cycles, human ships evolved continuously. Small improvements in design, propulsion, weapons, and shields were tested and implemented quickly, often in the same day. Each iteration was smarter, faster, and more resilient than the last. The result was a fleet of ships that were constantly improving, making them increasingly difficult to counter or predict. For the Empire, this represented not just a technological challenge but a fundamental shift in how war could be conducted in the galaxy. Humans also demonstrated remarkable teamwork and collaboration. Engineers, pilots, and scientists worked together in ways that encouraged rapid innovation. Ideas were shared freely, tested quickly, and refined collectively. This collaborative approach meant that breakthroughs did not depend on a single genius or leader. They emerged from the combined efforts of many individuals working in harmony. The Empire, by contrast, relied heavily on hierarchy and authority, where decisions were made at the top and executed rigidly by subordinates. Humans' decentralized, collaborative method allowed them to innovate in ways that the Empire could not control or predict. Another surprising factor for the Empire was the humans' ability to anticipate and respond to threats. Their warships were designed not only for offense but also for adaptability and defense. Shields could respond dynamically to attacks, propulsion systems allowed rapid repositioning, and weapons could target multiple threats simultaneously. This adaptability meant that humans could respond to new challenges faster than the Empire could even analyze them. Each battle, each test, and each experiment provided new data that humans used to improve their designs further, creating a cycle of continuous advancement that the Empire found impossible to break. As humans continued to innovate, Imperial attempts to understand their methods often failed. Scientists tried to reverse engineer human systems, study their engineering principles, and predict their next moves. But the humans' creative problem-solving, combined with rapid iteration and collaboration, made their technology a moving target. Every new design incorporated lessons from previous experiments, making it more efficient, more powerful, and more unpredictable. The Empire's analysts were left frustrated, realizing that no amount of observation or calculation could fully anticipate human innovation. The result was a growing sense of urgency within the Empire. The humans were no longer just another species. They were a force capable of redefining the rules of space warfare. Entire sectors of Imperial fleets were reassessed, strategies were rewritten, and new programs were initiated to try to keep pace with human advancement. Yet for every attempt to gain an advantage, humans seemed to stay one step ahead. Their ability to innovate rapidly, adapt to new situations, and think creatively made them an unprecedented threat. By the end of this phase, the Empire understood that humans were not just building ships. They were building a new way of thinking about technology and warfare. Their ships were not only powerful and fast, but also intelligent, adaptive, and unpredictable. The humans' approach to problem-solving, their ability to collaborate, and their relentless experimentation allowed them to create systems that the Empire could neither fully understand nor counter. This realization forced the Empire to confront an uncomfortable truth. Humans were no longer a species to be dismissed or underestimated. Humans, meanwhile, continued their work with unrelenting focus. They did not celebrate their victories or consider the fear they caused across the galaxy. To them, the impossible was simply a challenge to be solved. Each new warship, each new technology represented progress, learning, and improvement. Their ingenuity and determination were limitless, and their potential seemed boundless. The Empire, despite its vast resources and experience, had to accept that it was facing a species that could innovate faster, adapt more quickly, and think more creatively than any civilization it had ever encountered. The story of this phase highlights the unstoppable rise of human ingenuity. While the Empire struggled with fear, uncertainty, and attempts to control or predict human advancement, humans continued to evolve, innovate, and improve. Their warships became symbols of adaptability and creativity, representing a level of technological sophistication that the Empire had never seen. By the end of this stage, it was clear. The humans' ability to think differently, experiment fearlessly, and learn rapidly had given them an advantage that could not be measured or matched. The galaxy had begun to change, and the Empire could do nothing but watch in awe and concern as humans revealed their full potential. By the time the Galactic Empire fully realized the extent of human technological capability, it was too late to underestimate them. Humans had already established themselves as a species that could not be controlled, predicted, or ignored. The first impossible warship had been just the beginning, and in the years that followed, humans continued to improve their designs at a rate that defied the Empire's expectations. What once seemed impossible had become reality, and now the Empire had to face the consequences. The presence of humans in strategic star systems was no longer a curiosity. It was a direct threat to Imperial power and influence across the galaxy. Imperial fleets, once confident and dominant, were forced to confront a new kind of uncertainty. Human ships were not only faster, more resilient, and more intelligent than Imperial vessels, they were also unpredictable in their tactics. Where the Empire relied on rigid formations and overwhelming firepower, humans employed strategies that were flexible, adaptive, and often counterintuitive. Their ships could evade attacks in ways that seemed impossible, strike at weak points the Empire had never considered, and retreat when necessary only to return stronger with new modifications. Every engagement with human forces forced the Empire to rethink its approach, and there were no easy answers. The psychological impact of human ingenuity on the Empire was profound. Imperial commanders and generals, many of whom had spent their lives confident in the Empire's supremacy, began to doubt themselves. For centuries, the Empire had relied on fear and intimidation to control entire species and regions, yet humans were not afraid. They were bold, fearless, and often audacious. Even when faced with overwhelming odds, human forces demonstrated creativity and resourcefulness, finding solutions where the Empire expected only failure. Reports circulated through the Imperial Council of small human fleets defeating much larger forces, not through raw firepower, but through strategy, speed, and clever use of technology. The Empire's greatest weapon, its confidence in its own strength, was beginning to crumble. Humans did not seek glory or recognition. Unlike other civilizations the Empire had subdued, humans did not desire conquest for its own sake. Their motivation was protection, survival, and the pursuit of knowledge. They built advanced warships not to dominate others, but to ensure that they could face any threat, whether from hostile aliens or the unpredictable dangers of space itself. This practical, problem-solving mindset made humans even more dangerous. Where the Empire expected pride, arrogance, or mistakes born of hubris, humans showed discipline, focus, and relentless improvement. They learned from every encounter, refined their technology constantly, and never allowed complacency to creep into their strategies. The Empire, meanwhile, had no choice but to take humans seriously. Entire strategies were rewritten, fleets were reassigned, and scientists were ordered to study human technology at every opportunity. Espionage efforts increased, but even the best Imperial agents found it nearly impossible to predict human innovations. Each attempt to understand or replicate their designs failed. The humans' iterative development, combined with their ability to think creatively, meant that every human warship incorporated lessons the Empire had not yet anticipated. They were evolving faster than the Empire could keep up, and the realization terrified even the most confident Imperial leaders. Rumors of human capabilities spread beyond Imperial borders. Alien civilizations, long dominated or intimidated by the Empire, began to take notice. Stories of humans building warships that defied physics, surviving encounters that should have been fatal, and outmaneuvering larger forces inspired awe and fear. For the first time, the Empire's reputation as the unchallenged ruler of the galaxy was questioned, not just by humans but by other species observing the changing balance of power. Humans had become more than a technological threat. They were a symbol of unpredictability, ingenuity, and resilience. Despite the growing fear and attention, humans continued their work with remarkable focus. Engineers, pilots, and scientists did not let imperial panic distract them. They tested new propulsion systems, energy shields, and weapon designs. Every new ship incorporated lessons learned from previous models, resulting in a fleet that was increasingly capable and unpredictable. Humans' approach to innovation was relentless. They did not settle for incremental improvements, nor did they allow limitations to define their possibilities. Where other species might have relied on tradition, humans experimented constantly, exploring new ideas and finding unconventional solutions that the Empire could not anticipate. The result of this relentless innovation was a turning point in galactic politics. The Empire could no longer treat humans as a minor species. Their technological superiority and adaptability demanded respect, caution, and a complete reassessment of strategy. Imperial fleets that had once roamed the galaxy without challenge now had to consider human presence in every decision. Diplomats and military leaders debated how to respond. Could humans be allies, or were they an inevitable threat? Could the Empire negotiate, or was conflict unavoidable? Every option carried uncertainty, and the unpredictability of human ingenuity made planning extraordinarily difficult. Humanity's advantage was not limited to technology. Their mindset, collaborative approach, and problem-solving abilities created a situation the Empire had never faced. Humans were flexible, adaptive, and capable of rapid learning. They worked together seamlessly, sharing knowledge and improving collectively, whereas the Empire relied heavily on hierarchy and central command. This difference in approach meant humans could innovate in ways the Empire could not. Every failure or challenge became a step forward, making them stronger and more capable over time. The Empire, despite its vast resources, could not match the speed, creativity, and adaptability of human development. As humans continued to expand their fleet, the Empire realized that traditional methods of control and intimidation would not work. Brute force, fear, or overwhelming numbers were no longer sufficient. Humans had demonstrated the ability to survive encounters that should have been fatal, and their warships could counter nearly every weapon the Empire possessed. Military planners struggled to adapt, but every solution the Empire devised seemed to be met with an equally innovative human response. The humans' combination of ingenuity, speed, and adaptability made them nearly unstoppable. The turning point came when humans' reputation spread across the galaxy. Other civilizations began to recognize that humans were not just another species. They were a force capable of challenging the Empire itself. The presence of humans inspired hope among oppressed species and fear among imperial loyalists. Humans' technology, combined with their unconventional thinking, meant that no strategy could guarantee control over them. They had become the species everyone watched, feared, and respected. The Galactic Empire, for all its power, realized that it would have to contend with humans as equals, if not superiors, in technological innovation and strategic thinking. Even as the Empire attempted to respond, humans continued to advance. New ships were tested, new systems were deployed, and every challenge was met with creative solutions. The human fleet grew more capable with each passing year, incorporating advanced shields, adaptive propulsion systems, and weapons that the Empire could not predict. Every battle, every test, and every experiment provided data that humans used to improve further. Their technology was evolving faster than the Empire could study it, and the humans' problem-solving mindset meant that they were always one step ahead. The story of this final phase is not just about technology or warships. It is about the shift in power and perception. Humans had transformed from a curiosity to a credible threat. Their ingenuity and determination had forced the Empire to reconsider its strategies, reevaluate its assumptions, and confront the possibility that its supremacy was no longer absolute. Where the Empire once assumed it could dominate through fear, force, and technology, it now faced a species that could innovate faster, adapt more quickly, and respond unpredictably. Humans had become a new kind of power in the galaxy, one that could not be measured by conventional standards. By the end of this phase, the Galactic Empire had come to an undeniable conclusion. Humans were not just capable of building impossible warships, they were capable of redefining what was possible. The Empire had to take them seriously, plan carefully, and adapt to a species whose creativity, adaptability, and determination were unmatched. The humans' relentless focus on innovation and problem-solving had given them an advantage that could not be quantified or countered by traditional means. They had become a symbol of ingenuity, resilience, and unpredictable power in a galaxy that had long believed itself under the Empire's control.